I completely underestimated it. I just thought, I'd never DNF'd before, and I was like, I've never DNF'd before. I've run a load of 100Ks. I hadn't done a miler at that point, but I was like, I can do this.
That was Scott Pugh, GM of APAC for Figma, and a man quietly obsessed with some of the hardest endurance challenges in the world. Today we dig into what he calls the endurance mindset, the grit to keep going when you've already failed twice, the discipline to build life around big and comfortable goals, and the way that the long miles reshape how you lead teams, handle setbacks, and make decisions. I'm Jason Hunt, and this is Execs Who Run, the show on life, leadership, and the miles between. Now, let's dive in. Welcome along to the show, Scott. How are we doing?
I'm good, Jason. It's good.
It's good. This is the first episode that I'm doing in person, so I know that's like a special accomplishment for you to make me do this. It's good.
I always think in person's great. You just feel off people's energy, and I think recording podcasts in person is best.
Yeah, I agree, and I should definitely start to do it more often, but we'll see. The first question that I ask, and this kind of is a bit of a cheat because I literally saw you running in when we came in to record this, but tell me about your last most memorable run. So maybe it wasn't the run that I just saw.
I squeezed in a 4K run before this. Last memorable run. Well, so this weekend, I live in Singapore, and in Singapore, I'm a trail runner, and they're really limited by hills. There's one hill in Singapore, effectively, called Bukit Hill, and there's often challenges that people like. There's a running club that set challenges around it. There's called the Mountain Goat Running Club, and there's a 20K loop around it, which they set a challenge to do in the fastest possible time. And so, on Sunday evening, I went and locked the time in for that and just went and sprinted around Bukit Hill for a couple of hours. That was like the last proper run. And actually, it's a qualifier to a final that's happening this Saturday. So I'm heading back there to do a similar route this Saturday.
That's a pretty quick turnaround. You feeling ready for it?
Oh, it's only 20K. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. But the thing is, one of my mates, we're kind of competing against each other. My mate Bert, so I'm probably gonna go pretty hard for those couple of hours.
Yeah, I love that only 20K because, as we'll get into a bit later, you do some crazy stuff, which is cool. What I want to start with though is getting a little bit about your background from a career point of view. So currently you're the GM of APAC for Figma.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that, but also what got you to this point.
Yeah, sure. So I have had the privilege to launch Figma into Asia Pacific, and for those of you that don't know, listeners that don't know, we fundamentally started as a design platform, a collaborative design platform, and have evolved into like a product development platform for individuals, companies, agencies to build digital products from ideation right through to handing off to development teams to ship products. So I effectively run sales for APAC and based in Singapore. Here in Sydney today, we've just moved into a new office, so I've come down to see the team in the new office and run the region from. I mean, we're about to launch in India next week, and sort of up to Korea and across the region. Mm. But yeah, I've worked in tech and tech sales and go to market for the last 15, 20 years in across Asia.
Yeah, well, people can probably tell by your accent that you're not from this part of the world. So what prompted the move from the UK?
Yeah, I'm a Pommy, as you guys would say down here. Yeah, I've been in Asia for 15 years. My wife originally got a job in Hong Kong going back to 2009. So 16 years, can't count. So my wife's an Aussie, so moving out to Asia, we're kind of in no man's land between our two, sort of like where our parents and family are from. And yeah, we've been in Singapore for 10 years now, and just love living in this region, in such an exciting region, to both from a work perspective, but also from a running perspective. I love exploring the trails, and I mean, there's some great marathons, and it's a great region to run in and to explore in.
Yeah. How have you found life as a sales leader in Asia compared to maybe some sales work that you were doing back in the UK?
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, the Asia Pacific is always, for most companies, most software and tech companies, they always like group regions together. You've got like North America, and then you've got EMEA, and then it's APAC or APJ is often a region. And it's really quite hard to think about APAC as just one region. I kind of think about it as like 5 or 6 really, and they're all very different from each other. I mean, Australia and New Zealand is much more similar to the UK or the US, and then you've got the Southeast Asia ASEAN region, which is kind of it's obviously all the countries in together, but even in between those, they're all different languages, different cultures, and then I think about like India and South Asia, and then you've got Korea and Japan as 2 separate regions, and then you've got like Greater China region, and they're all so distinctly different. So I suppose from a like go-to-market and running businesses and running teams is like building a strategy for each independently and looking at those independently. And there's some like crossover, but you do need to, from a sales perspective, hire people that can really kind of have attunement with each of those markets. So you need to have, essentially like we're doing now, we've got a team in Australia, we're opening up in India, we'll likely open up in Korea at some point. And so being where your customers are and actually having a different sort of go-to-market strategy for each one is really important.
Has running been a useful segue into different relationships or whatnot in the region? Is that something that resonates here? Like, particularly in Australia, sport is just such a unlock for conversations. Is that similar across APAC?
Yeah. I mean, I run a podcast myself called Endurance Asia around endurance sports and a lot around ultra running. And yeah, I've met a few people through that I've ended up sort of like working to and from a corporate perspective. But yeah, I kind of keep them like reasonably separate. But yeah, I mean, saying that, you know, there's people I've worked with or people from the industry that we're part of a running club in Singapore called Singapore Falcons, and I like, you know, when meet people through work and they're into running, I'm like, hey, come down to our track sessions on Tuesday. So they're kind of, you kind of like get it mixed together.
Okay. Maybe this is the perfect segue into exploring your running. So the thing that I always find the most interesting in these conversations is people's running origin. You know, some people started when they were at school, some people did very different ways to get into running. What's your story?
Yeah, I was listening to one of your earlier podcasts, and you asked that question, and it made me think. My first introduction to running was actually a reason that I thought I never would run. Actually, so I remember I think I was like 12 years old, and or maybe I was probably about 10 or 11, and I did an 800 meters at like a sports day. And I thought I could run, and I went and did this 800 meters. I think it's probably one of the toughest distances. Anyway, I like absolutely died on the second half. And I remember having to go to the bathroom after, and I was like physically throwing up. And I immediately, with self-talk, just told myself in that moment, you can't run. I was like, you don't have the ability to do this. And actually that stayed with me for probably like a decade and a half. And to the point where I was like, you know, I played football, I was like, okay, but I was like, I can't run, so I'll be a goalkeeper. And it actually turned out to be an okay goalkeeper, but I was like, I was a goalkeeper more because I couldn't run, was always like, and yeah, it's an interesting, like for any facet of life, if you tell yourself you can do something, you can probably do it. If you tell yourself you can't, you won't do it, you know, and it wasn't until kind of like later, I was always into outdoors and stuff, and then got into like hiking a bit more, and then just got fitter and fitter, and then actually realised that, God, why was I telling myself that back in the day? Because if I hadn't have had that moment, I could have actually been a lot better runner earlier, but I didn't actually start getting any decent at running until like my mid to late 30s. Yeah.
I think the key mistake you made was an 800 meter.
yeah, it's a horrible
it's
distance.
The first thing you tried, because I'm not a short distance athlete, but 800s are by far the worst distance in running, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, I actually remember then I went to secondary school and I did a cross country, and I like kind of surprised myself that I was actually okay at it, but I had really imprinted in my mind, you're not a runner. And so I never really like sort of attempted to sort of change that self-talk. And yeah.
So how old were you when you then started this kind of, I'm doing hiking, but I'm now thinking I can do it running?
Yes, I moved to Hong Kong in 2009. I was like 27 then, and before that, when I'd been in the UK, I'd done a few challenges like the Three Peaks Challenge, which was as a charity team event at work, and where you climb the highest hill in each in like Wales, England, Scotland. And I did a bit of mountain biking, and I did some outdoor stuff, some challenges. But running was never part of it. It was like mountain bike. I did a couple of like mountain bike challenges and like cycling and stuff. But it wasn't until I got to Hong Kong and then did some. Hong Kong is one of the best cities to hike in the world, and subsequently trail run in the world. Like I honestly, I mean, San Francisco. You go over to Marin County, it's got some great stuff. But yeah, I don't think there's another city in the world that has the accessible trails that Hong Kong did. And so that was really what sparked my love that got into like running from there.
Do you have like a first memory of like that change and the first trail run that you did that you were like, yeah, I've been missing out on this?
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of my endurance and physical activities have always been tied to a fundraising event. So like the Three Peaks Challenge we did for a children's charity. And then when I got to Hong Kong, I found out about the Oxfam Trail Walker, which is kind of it's a 100k trail run across the Macklehose Trail, which is across the new territories of Hong Kong. And it's one of the very first ultra runs in probably Asia Pacific, and it's a team event of 4. And when I arrived in Hong Kong, I found out about it. I was like, I want to do that, and sort of got into a team to be able to do it. And we were really just like going for kind of 24 hours, just like a hiking fast, like through hike thing. And it's just there's parts of that trail which are just spectacular. Like there's out in Sai Kung, which is kind of the northwest of Hong Kong, and you've got the views of all the beaches, and it's just an incredible, like, just the beautiful mountains. And that for me was like, wow, this is it. This is why I kind of got into like hiking and stuff. And yeah, and through that process of just training, because you need to train for these events. If there's a team of 4, you're accountable. You know, I think I love team events when it comes to endurance sports more than anything. And you know, you never want to be the slowest person in the team. And so you have to make sure you train as a team, and so just being out there on the hills was what sort of really drew me in.
We talked right at the start about 20Ks being a short, just 20Ks for you. So what does your running look like now? Like what is the go-to distance? What kind of things are you getting amongst?
I'm quite big on like setting a goal. So like when I moved to Hong Kong, it's like, I want to do Oxfam Trail Walker, and then there's been like lots of ultras in there. I kind of skipped the running marathons and just went straight to running trail and running ultra. And I've been obsessed about a challenge in Hong Kong called the Hong Kong 4 Trails Ultra Challenge. I first attempted it in 2019, and it's a 298 kilometre. It basically is 4 long trails that are sort of country park national trails in Hong Kong. And there's a guy called Andre Bloomberg who's the challenge founder. It's kind of like a Barclays Marathons for anyone that's watched the Netflix documentary. It's an equivalent of that kind of challenge. You have to do it in 60 hours. The clock doesn't stop. And so these 4 trails, it links them all up together. And I've been definitely obsessed about it for the last 7 years. I've attempted it twice, and then COVID got in the way and a couple of injuries. But yeah, I'm looking to do sort of for charity, do it again next year in 2026. You've got to kind of like write an essay to get in, and it's only sort of accepts sort of 20 to 25 people, and it's a very niche challenge. Although they've got a documentary out at the moment called 4 Trails, which I highly recommend. It's a brilliant documentary by a guy called Robin Lee, he's done a documentary about this challenge before called Breaking 60, but they've done another one around the I think it's the 2021 edition, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's a fascinating event. So I've been training for the 300k race, and I can talk a little bit about what it means to train for a race like that. But it's pretty intensive. Yeah.
Well, yeah. The main topic that we're going to kind of dive into is endurance mindset, and I think it's a great topic. It's a similar thing, I guess, in terms of a theme that we pick up in this conversation on this podcast a lot of the time, because the analogy of running to life is is so pure and there's so much there.
Yeah.
But what does endurance mindset mean to you? Like, what is the definition of that to you?
Endurance mindset, I think, is just around never giving up. You know, it's that saying like death before DNF, which I don't actually like. I don't believe in that. I mean, I think that there are times where you need to DNF either through injury or if you're like really like your body's broken. Like I had to DNF with a fracture of my femur, and it's like you're not going to continue running on that. But yeah, it's just that kind of grit, determination, continuing to push through when the going gets tough is endurance mindset. And I think, you know, we do it in our running. We do it. I always sort of say if you DNF a training session, it gives you the pass to DNF in a race. So like whenever we do a track session and like someone's like, oh, I can't do this last one, I'm like, you're going to do it. Like you're going to push through and do it, because as soon as you allow yourself to give up in a session, even if it's like any like session, if you give yourself the opportunity to give up, then it gives yourself the opportunity to give up in a race, in anything in life, in something you're doing at work, gives you an opportunity to just check out. So,
how was that experience? We talk about the failed attempt at the 4 trails. It's never that fun when you do have to DNF from a race, regardless of like what the circumstances were. And you've tried twice, I think, now, and obviously going for a third. So what do you kind of take from those first 2 experiences, and like how does that mindset develop and evolve to go, all right, this is how I need to work through this next attempt that I want to do?
Yeah, I was running Doyathan UTMB Thailand in 20, it's a couple of years ago, and I DNF'd it because I had I found out 3 months later when I got an MRI that I had I had a fracture on my femoral neck, and so I was out for 3 months. And I was like, this isn't getting better, and I had an MRI. Until that DNF, the only challenge or race I DNF'd was 4 trails, and the first time I completely underestimated it. I just thought, I'd never DNF'd before, and I was like, I've never DNF'd before. I've run a load of 100Ks. I hadn't done a miler at that point, but I was like, I can do this. You know, I've done adventure races, which have been a 600K and over like 6 days and slept for 9 hours. Like I can do like 300K on foot. You know, I've got this. And I raised like $50,000 for UN refugee agencies. I had a lot of pressure on me, but I was like, you know, I can do this no problem. And I ended up like getting real bad. There's so much you need to plan for when you're doing this kind of ultra, just from like equipment, from like training, from like, I didn't have the right shoes. And I ended up getting like really bad swollen ankles, like really like completely bad that I couldn't actually bend. And so after like 170K, I had to pull, and it's just very humbling. You know, I was almost like arrogant to think, yeah, I can do this. I like no problem at all. And I remember after a race, whether I'm successful or not, depending on what like your target is, I'd always do a debrief and like, okay, these are the things that went well, these are the things that could have improved, and just about try and learn from it. Both if you've even if you crushed the race, I think it's good to, hey, these things that went well, I need to make sure I do that next time. And so when I went back the next year, I changed all these things, adapted all these things, and I got to 200K, and on that occasion I just had like a knee issue, and I had a really painful knee, and it's just like I couldn't run it. And actually the next day I couldn't walk on it. And I've never really had that problem before, but it's just, you know, it happens. And so, but it's just a long way, you know. And I've subsequently, like, there's a mate of mine, Richard Kimber, who's run and has finished it first time, and he's an incredible runner. He's done, you know, this year he's done UTMB, just did Diagonal de Food, which is a crazy race in one of the islands in the middle of the Indian Ocean. And he got the same knee issue, but he just went through it. And I'm like, why couldn't I go through it? But I don't know, you kind of always think about, like, maybe I could have pushed through. But the key thing is setting goals and doing challenges, which now I just know are completely beyond my ability. Like, I don't have any right to be able to finish this challenge, but that's what kind of excites me about it, because it means that every day, like every training session, it's like, it's like, no, if you're going to do that, you have to do this session, like, or you're just not going to finish. So.
What compels you to do that? Like, is there something that you think is innate in you that drives you to do that? Is there something external that drives that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's like back to like being that 11-year-old kid and telling yourself you couldn't do it. And since I've constantly tell myself, I know you can. I've like kind of like flipped and just I like kind of like pushing the boundaries of what I think I can do and proving myself like right and maybe like and a little bit inspiring other people to do it as well. Yeah, I don't know. Like, is there some ego thing around it? I don't know. Like, I don't really like, apart from doing podcasts, I don't like post stuff to social media. And I actually want to on this time round because I want to raise some money for charity for it again. And like, we raised $50,000 for UN Refugee Agency last time, and I want to kind of beat that this time. So that part of it, I love that giving back. But I mean, it's an often question is like, why do you do it? And and obviously there's some purpose and some, but I don't know. It's the dopamine effect of actually achieving something. It's for this event specifically, it's kind of the magic of it. It's got such an amazing backstory. And the people that have done it, it's got such a phenomenal community around it of just, it's like the Barkley Marathons in many ways, of like you've just got these people that have come back and do it and take it on every year, and they're all such cool people, and they've all come from really different and broad backgrounds, and just the challenge itself is just so bloody hard that it's like, if you could do that, it'd be pretty cool. And for everyone, it's different. You know, some people might be I'm not sure if you like triathletes, but like Ironman is the kind of pinnacle of it, or it might be doing all of the majors or something, marathons, or it's just this thing. It's like that you get obsessed over, or for a climber or a mountaineer, they might want to do Everest or something, or Mont Blanc or something like that. But for me, right now, it's this 4 trails in Hong Kong.
You're feeling like you've taken the lessons from last time and applying them and heading in the right direction? I mean,
I'm like 43 now. I'm in like the best condition I've ever been. I just need to make sure I don't get injured is always the way for us, right? I know that you're carrying a couple of niggles at the moment. And you just learn. Every year it's like you learn what you can do better. It's like your marginal gains of like, okay, if I just do this one other thing, this other thing, that they all add up to continuous improvement. And you need to realise that you've got to make sacrifices, whether that be like stop drinking, or I like make sure that I try and sleep well and try and like eat well, go to do strength and conditioning every day. Like, there's all these things that you need to apply yourself to. And as like when you've got such a busy job and busy family, it's difficult to balance it all. But it's such a hard challenge. I think I've got another 4 months to it. It's going to be in Chinese New Year in February. I'm putting myself in the best position to be able to get it done.
Yeah, perfect. Can we double click on something you mentioned earlier, and that's the kind of post-race debrief that you do. Can you take us through what that process actually looks like, and also whether or not that's something that you then bring into work life? Like, is it a similar process that you take through big changes through work? Yeah.
I mean, I just sat down with my leadership team yesterday and we did QBRs. We reviewed the last quarter, what went well, what didn't, looked into the data, looked into what things went well, what things didn't go, what were the learnings, what are you going to do differently, next quarter. And it's very similar approach that I take to my races and my runs. And I will jump into my training peaks. I'll look at actually how were my negatives split. So the last sort of proper race I did was a race called TMBT in Malaysia. It's a 50K, the most beautiful thing it's called. It's a beautiful race, like really hot in Sabah and Borneo, around the foothills of Mount Kinabalu, stunning views of Mount Kinabalu. I highly recommend anyone that wants to do an ultra in Asia to check it out. And I had an absolute blinder, everything kind of just went perfect. And I say perfect, and I came 6th, but 4 of the people in front of me are kind of professional trail runners. So I was pretty happy. It was one of my best run performances. And so doing the recap there is it's almost like, you don't really need to do it because you didn't have any issues really. It's like not much could have gone. Always something could have gone better, but for me it was like, okay, like I wore a pack. Normally I don't wear a pack and I have everything around my waist. And actually I wore a pack that worked really well. I made sure that I had the right amount of fluid with me because I've done that race before and I've run out of water and that's been an issue. I carried money to be able to buy food off all the stalls or buy cans of Coke off the stalls. I monitored my heart rate. I never went over 160, and just made sure I stayed within that. Yeah, like hammered down hills. And then there was a couple of issues, like I rolled my ankle a few times, like in so like shoe choice. I don't know if it's right, but without having the notes in front of me. But you're like, these are all the times I felt good. These are the times that were like pretty tough within the race, and then you can just sort of like take that on to your to your next race. I was just going to say, you're a marathon runner though, right? So it's quite different. Like with marathon running, it's like there's less variables. Like you've got the weather, but you're kind of just locking into the same place. You don't have hills, you don't have like aid stations as much. So how do you think about it? Is it similar when you're like, I've done one road marathon before, but is it similar there?
Yeah, I think you still go through a process of like understanding all the different variables and what part they're going to play. Yeah. It can get real nuanced around like, is it a race that I have bottles or am I going to have to carry all my nutrition? Or, is the on-course nutrition something I'm going to use or is it my own? What impacts the weather going to have today? Like all these kind of things do come into it. There is a lot less variables than an ultra race. And I think what you always try and take something away from each race to kind of understand. Same thing, like what went well, what didn't. A lot of it is probably reflecting back on your training in the lead up to it. I think because the race itself is, as you say, like it's pretty repeatable each time. The distance, yes, maybe courses are a bit hillier or there's more turns or whatnot, but you can't control for that. And in the grand scheme of things, they're not that different. So it's more kind of going, all right, like what did I do in the block that has a good impact on the race? What did I do this time that maybe wasn't right and that's why the performance wasn't good, or what went really well in the block and that's why it went really well. So it's probably trying to go back that step again, like diving into training peaks, like what workouts you did that kind of made sense, or what level of consistency you had and all that kind of stuff is probably what I would dive into more than necessarily like a lot of things that happened on the day.
On the day, that's interesting. Yeah, I've been trying to work out, like actually just over the last 3 months I've felt in like the best condition that I've ever been in, and it's interesting. Like I try and look about what changed. I've started taking creatine, and honestly, like it's the only thing that I can actually put my finger on. Is that something I've like completely changed? And it's like, seems to have had a big impact. I mean, all of the studies seem to that seem to say it's massively performance enhancing. But
I'm like 5 days into starting creatine myself.
Okay.
Like I've tried it in the past and probably just haven't been consistent with like I've tried it and then something's gone wrong outside and so it didn't like make as much sense to continue or whatever it was, and so I've never been constant on it. We're giving it a crack this time, so I'm 5 days in. I'm currently not running, so haven't seen any impact, but I'll report back once I have an outcome from that as well.
So let me know if it's impacted you. But I mean it's an interesting discussion going into all of the like vitamins and like any supplements and everything you take. And I've typically not done it. But to talk back to the marginal gains, okay, what's it going to take to finally get this thing done, get this 300K done? It's like, okay, I'm like all for whatever could potentially help and give me that like 1%.
I want to ask about this like application of endurance mindset to your work, but in particular as a sales leader, right? Like sales is probably one of the most challenging jobs out there in terms of like what you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, what your sales teams are dealing with. Like it's a very human role and that's what makes it challenging. Are there things that you've kind of picked up over the years that you've applied from a running point of view or vice versa that have really made you a better salesperson, have made you a better sales leader to be able to enable your teams better?
Yeah, I mean, back to what I think endurance mindset is, it's that kind of like tenacity and like never giving up, and also just dealing with that, like those punches in the nose as a salesperson, those rejections, or like it's kind of like roller coaster of like, being in sales, and 1 minute you're celebrating a deal, the next minute you're like commiserating rejection. And look, you get like, I think when you go out and do hard things and put yourself through like pain and running session, it kind of puts everything into perspective. It's like, it's not that bad. Like it allows you to just kind of compartmentalize sort of the challenges a little bit. I also find, for me, like I use such a busy life, like family, 3 kids, and so in order to fit in my volume of running, I run commute, and so I run to the office and run home, or vice versa, every day of the week. And so I actually find that's a really good for me as, I mean, we talked about it before as being meditative, but I also think it's actually a really good thing to like kind of work out what I'm going to do for the day, or solve most of my business problems when I'm out running. You know, it's the whole thing of like 9 to 5 work. You're never 9 to 5, especially if you're all in as like as you know you need to be when you're in a leadership role. And so even on my long runs on a Saturday, like I'm kind of working through some of the like strategy stuff in the business, or some of the problems we're solving, or like opportunities of things to do. And so I tend to like solve a lot of that while I'm out running. And so that's kind of a real benefit of endurance sports for me. Is like I spend a lot of the time I'm thinking about work. I'm like on the clock almost. Yeah.
Do you use the running or the running analogies with your team very often? Like, is that something that resonates with them?
I do actually, yeah. And they probably hate. I don't necessarily use it from an. I don't overly use it. I mean, you know, things when you're coming up to like, when I think about. As in sales, you like often have an annual quota, and it's like it's a bit like when you're running a marathon, and if you smash the first half, but you end up like crawling in and doing double the time in the second half of the race, like what's the point? Like you know, I've only done one road marathon, and my half marathon PB is in the second half of that marathon. And I think like negative splitting, like finishing faster than you start, is always good. So, but I do think there's a lot of inspiration to be taken from amazing runners. Like you had Ned on before. Like Ned's an absolute legend. We do like an award ceremony at our running club every year, and he's like the kind of like long distance running award, or the ultra award is like, and the Ned Phillips award. But we've had people like Ned, like there's a lady called Natalie Dow who I'm really close with that's done this Project 1000. I've had her come in and speak to the team and talk about like that from an inspirational. So I get like inspirational speakers from running to come in and speak to the team. And a good mate of mine, Chris Timms, who runs our running club, is kind of like the chairman of the running club. I've got him to come and speak into the team around like mindset and how you can bring that into work, and competitive spirit within teams. Like I think that's a really interesting aspect of running, and that correlates with teams. Is, I mean, many of your listeners will be part of run clubs, and they're mates with these people, but then they'll probably compete with them at track. You're like kind of pushing each other, right? You're like on each other's shoulders and trying to push each other to get better. In ours, like my mate I train with, we're going to be racing each other on Saturday, and we're both going out to absolutely smash each other, you know. And but like we're also mates, and we also want to push each other to get better. And I think that is really correlated to work, like especially in a sales environment. Like it's a team sport. We need to help each other and learn from each other, but you also want to top the leaderboard as well, you know. And so I think it's really important to have that competitive spirit, but then also to have the like team support around you.
How do you keep that healthy, right? Because both of those things probably converge on something a bit different that we talked about with Ned, was really that like the doing hard things and pushing through things and going like, when does this become unhealthy and potentially dangerous? But like competition is probably one of those things at the other end that can kind of go both ways, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I focus on so much I've had the opportunity to work for some incredible businesses. I worked for LinkedIn for 7 years. Started as the first employee in Hong Kong. We scaled to like 60 people there, and I moved to Singapore in that time. And then I joined a company called Mixpanel in product analytics, and we fantastic team. Built a team of 40 in across Singapore and India there. And for each of the teams, and we've got a team of close to 60 Figma in APAC, and like I'm always really focused on building a culture, like really strong cultures business that are focused on collaboration and people like helping and looking after each other, but also winners. Like I want people like, and I hire for people that are really driven and want to be successful, but also with like a no arsehole policy. And people that will step over each other to get somewhere will not fit in teams that I'm building. So I think it's partly the people you hire, and you can kind of like interview for that. When you're interviewing people, if they've got an ego, or if they're competitive to the point of being like just a pure lone wolf that they only care about their number. And you can, talking when they talk about some of the deals they've done, who were involved, how they collaborated with people, you can do this through like the interview process. And then just when you see people that, I remember like when I was, and it's not going on a rabbit hole, but I remember at my last company when someone closed the deal and everyone was celebrating. I saw one of the reps sitting there and just looking and just looked over and just with a look of disappointment. Like you could just see that I'm like, I wish that lead had come to me, kind of thing. Yeah. And I just went, I like left them all to celebrate, and I went and spoke and pulled her aside and said, why aren't you over there celebrating with us? And we had a conversation about it. And it was because they were like under a lot of pressure themselves. But if you have a culture of success where everyone else is being successful, it's kind of like a cycle, and everyone gets like drawn up into it, and it's and they feed off of it, and they want to be part of it, and then they'll end up. But if you get people that are like kind of detracting from it, and it's like a zero-sum game. If you're successful, it means I can't be. Then it doesn't create the like culture of success in the team.
Yeah, it's quite funny actually. I was joking with someone the other day around like running as something that you should hire for. So like questions about like, are you a runner? Because as we've talked about in this and many other podcasts, like a lot of positive things come from that. Not that you're necessarily looking for runners, but as it relates to this kind of endurance mindset as well. Are there elements of that you think you are consciously looking for when you're hiring people into your teams, and particularly into your sales teams?
Yeah, I look for people that are passionate about something, that have like a passion out of something that they're like committed to. Now, I caveat that with I don't like people doing like full side projects that are just that they're fully like full side hustle, because we're just too busy at there's too much to do at Figma to have like a full side hustle. But I like for people to have other passions, and we have like an employee resource group called Wellmates, and we really encourage like people to focus on their own well-being, and whether it be we've got people that do like high rocks and different, and a few people from have joined like the running club that have come and like a girl called Minji in our team. She when Natalie Dow came in to speak about her 1,000-kilometer run, like Minji was really inspired when run a half marathon. She's now doing high rocks. She's joined our running club. She comes to track every Tuesday, and so there's definitely a part of that. Chris Keatley, one of our leaders, is like a really, really strong cyclist, and so maybe I do. I mean, I like people that like actually like look after themselves on the personal side, and like because how you do something is how you do everything. So if you look after yourself, then you're going to look after our customers. Is kind of one way I look at it.
Makes sense. How important is running to you? Like you talk about your very busy life. Obviously, you've got a very busy role given you're flying around on the time doing stuff there, and you've got 3 kids, so family will be busy. Like, what role does running actually play in your life for you?
I mean, it's kind of, it becomes part of you, right? For all of us that run consistently, it just becomes like breathing almost. And for those of you that are like have been injured, that it feels like you've had a part of your life taken away from you, and so it just becomes almost like, I think, innate for us to that it's something like we kind of have to do, like eating or like breathing, and yeah, like I was out for maybe 6 months with this femoral neck fracture, and I was a irritable asshole. Like, no, I mean, like just short
Ask your wife about
fuse.
this one.
Yeah, I mean, like just short fuse with the kids and stuff, and just like lack of patience. And so I think we can all speak to. We always feel better after a run. Sometimes we don't want to go out and do it, but afterwards you always think, "I'm glad I did that." And so, what does it mean to me? I mean, it's. I was chatting to my wife the other day, and she's like, "Right, when you get this done, like this 4 trails, like you're gonna chill out for a bit, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, like." There'll be the next thing, like the next challenge will come up, and you need to be prepared for that. Like, because if I don't have that kind of thing in my life to drive for, then it feels like there's, something missing.
Does she run as well?
She doesn't. No. I mean, she looks after herself. She does goes long walks and goes to the gym a lot and does yoga and stuff. But yeah, running's not her thing.
Does she get it?
Well, I took her to see the 4 Trails documentary, which is probably one of the best things I've ever done as it pertains to my running, because she saw it and she goes, "Wow, this is amazing." And she's like, fully understands now and how hard it is and what goes into it. And so she's been a bit more supportive of me, like going off for 5-6 hours on a Saturday to go and do my sessions now.
Sounds like a very positive thing for your marriage. Yeah. I love it. As we get into the kind of the back end of this conversation, as you've listened to a few episodes, we always kind of dive into getting some advice from you. So what I would like is your top piece of advice on life, your top piece of advice on leadership, and then the most important one, your top piece of advice on running.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't prepare for this.
It's better when you don't prepare.
Yeah. So top piece of advice. Okay, I mean, and actually, I'm gonna like cheat and say one that kind of covers all of them, or can be used in all of them. But like setting out like a goal or something that you think is beyond your ability and you're unable to achieve, and you get there, you don't get there, but you will learn and you'll get better through the process. So like and I'm, I read The Secret 20 years ago, and like I didn't really subscribe to it, but I do believe a lot in visualization and being able to, if you say you're going to do something or you say this is going to happen, it will happen. Like it will happen because it just goes into your subconscious that it will happen. But like setting out something, this is what I want to do. And even if you think, and so like in running, and if you're running a marathon, and like whether it be like the 3-hour cutoff or even go hard on that, if you set it out there, like just by setting that goal, like even if you don't achieve it, you'll at least do what you need to do to try and do the training sessions, make the sacrifices you need to do that will make you a better person and make you grow and make you and you will end up in a better place had you like gone, I'm just going to go to just show up and do like a 3.5 hour, that's fine, just to enjoy. And I think this is the same like in leadership. I kind of think about setting goals for the teams and setting things we want to achieve, and there's no point like, okay, we've all in sales you all have quotas, but the quota shouldn't just be to do your number like that. It should just like what could absolutely like, I really love Jim Collins' books, but like Good to Great, it talks about the B hacks, your big, hairy, audacious goal. I think that you should be doing that across your whole life. There's a guy that a mate of mine called Grant Rawlinson, who's a guy you should get on actually. He came up with the challenge of going from home to home. He went from Singapore to New Zealand, and by rowing and then cycling around Australia and then rowing the ditch across. And he talks about bugs, like a bold, unique goal. So something like really bold, that's really like, captures people's imagination, but also is unique. Like not other people are doing it. It's not kind of, it has something that's like different. So yeah, I think that can span those 3 facets of your life.
I think it's really good. I think there's the piece that underpins it where when you set that stretch goal or something that's like beyond what you think you can do, assuming you've hired the right people who are going to try and think about it, or it's the way that you're wired as well, the problem solving to try and get there is where most of the value comes from, right? Because you've gone, all right, if X is what I can achieve and I've just set something at 10% higher than X, I need to figure out how to get there, right? And so that process of learning and going, all right, maybe I can, maybe I can't, let's try and figure out how I'm going to do it, even if you don't get there, you've probably learnt a few bits along the way, and then you've probably learnt the things for next time to be able to go and try it again. In fact, like, it comes back to the experience of like doing this crazy 300k run. You would have learned a lot when you first did it, and going, all right, well, these are things I can change for next time, and it gives you the chance of doing it next time.
I might not do it this year. You know, I might fail again. But I tell you what, the last 7 years of training that is like, I have completely transformed as a person. I've become, like, as a 43-year-old, I've PB'd every single distance from 50k down. You know, I did, just ran out. I did a little charity thing running out of work and did a 3:55 50k on road in Singapore in really hot. I ran Seoul Marathon, first ever marathon, did it in 2:55 as a 43-year-old, and like all the way down to like, I just did a 10k PB last weekend on doing mile repeats, and I was doing like an off for 200 meters, like walking pretty much in between. I did a 10k PB. So all that's to say is like, I wouldn't be achieving any of that if I didn't have this like big, like knowing that I'm training for this big 300k thing to put all the work in. So you get all of these other like kind of residual achievements based on just going after this big like target, which is, and I'll probably fail it, but it doesn't matter because I'll have grown through the process. But I won't fail. I'm gonna get it done because I'll have to train for it for another year, and I'm like not up for doing that. Yeah.
So I guess what does the next 4 months look like for you to lead into that race?
So I'm doing Trans Lantau, which is 120k ultra in Hong Kong, in Lantau in a few weeks' time. My week is typically kind of like 100k to 120k plus week. Want to get 3,000 meter elevation in, just consistency, just getting that kind of mileage in every week, and just trying to make sure that I just keep that consistent level up, keep strength and conditioning, good sleep, no booze, eating well, all like multivits and supplements and stuff, and then prep. And I need to get up to Hong Kong, and because this is effectively you need to nav it yourself. So I need to do a couple of recce's up there and just get my mindset right to get it done. But
nice.
Yeah, and then I want to raise some cash for it as well. So yeah, I'm going to share on LinkedIn and stuff. So yeah, any of your listeners, follow me, connect to me on LinkedIn, and yeah, follow the story. I'll share a bit of information about it, and yeah.
Awesome. No, that'd be cool. And actually, I should have asked earlier when you brought it up, but tell us a little bit more about your podcast, because I'm sure I'll have listeners that'll find that pretty fascinating as well.
Yes, Endurance Asia on Spotify and Apple. We sometimes publish on YouTube. I've got such a busy life that it's one thing I like. I kind of just record when I go to races and do kind of race reports at the moment, but I'm going to be doing a bit more around leading up to 4 trails. But we tend to, like, we've had Ned on. I've had Ned on before, who's last on your podcast. We tend to have people that do some like crazy like achievements, or some of the top ultra runners, and just to learn from what makes them tick, and learn from some of their training. It's really selfishly one of the reasons I do it is first to be better at my job. So I'm in sales, and I like to ask questions like you do. It's similar for you as well,
totally.
Right? To become like I'm inquisitive and be able to learn from people, to learn to become a better ultra runner myself, and yes, a bit of fun.
That is the best access to free coaching I've ever heard, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's so good. And I mean, like, for example, last guy I had on was a guy called Hisashi Kitamura. He's one of the best ultra runners in Japan, and like kind of almost a bit OCD, but one of the things he does, he's a 95% of his training on a treadmill. Like, he runs uphill on a treadmill, and it was at the TMBT race that I did, and I did the 50k, he did the 100. So I actually ran with him for quite a bit of it. Just a machine, man. And he just does all of his running uphill on a treadmill. I haven't quite adopted that strategy, but yeah, it's interesting sort of like learning from some of these elites how they do it.
Yeah, maybe I need to spend some more time on a treadmill, who knows. Well, thank you so much for coming on. There's been a great conversation. I think there's some real interesting bits and pieces there. You mentioned you'll post some more stuff on LinkedIn. We'll get people following along and supporting the journey. Yeah, sure. No, I really enjoyed it, Jason. I think it's there's a lot of correlation between business and running, and it's always fun to talk about it. Awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Execs Who Run. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And, better yet, share it with a friend or colleague who runs as well. You can find more stories and episodes at execswho.com or follow us along on Instagram or LinkedIn. Just search Execs Who Run. Also, you can join our Strava group to connect with other listeners on the run. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you the next conversation very soon.